As a result of President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, there is a labor shortage that has begun to worry workers. According to employees and union leaders, they are no longer able to find people willing and able to do the jobs that veteran workers from overseas had been doing before being forced to leave their jobs. Economists warn that the administration's full scale deportation ambitions could ultimately cost millions of jobs. And workers at two sites in Michigan and Kentucky spoke to The Guardian and said that, yeah, the places that we're working at right now, as a result of what's going on, are now dealing with a labor shortage. Now, we're not talking about, by the way, jobs that are filled generally by undocumented immigrants. They often work in agriculture and meatpacking plants in terrible conditions, etc. We're not just talking about them. We are talking about all sorts of different industries that employ legal immigrants. For example, in the food industry, the hospitality industry, construction, transportation, healthcare, all that. They rely on large numbers of immigrants to do the essential work. And again, these immigrants are legally allowed to work, or at least they were legally allowed to work before Trump. Now, what did Trump do to stop that? Well, he ended the Parole Program, right? Which allowed hundreds of thousands of Cubans, Haitians, Venezuelans, Nicaraguans to work legally in the country. It's a lot of workers. Now, Trump ended that, and as a result, of course, they're no longer legally allowed to work in the country and are being arrested by ICE. ICE has a quota of 3,000 arrests per day. So this is one of the ways that they could hit their quotas. And obviously, those workers no longer being in that industry, being allowed to do their jobs, that's creating major, major problems. Not just for the companies, but for their fellow workers as well. For example, at a GE appliances plant in Louisville, Kentucky, where there were more than 125 workers that were abruptly forced out of their jobs in the spring due to the programs being canceled by the administration. One employee said this, quote, "In 3 different buildings, only on a couple of different shifts, stewards reported that they lost production, so they weren't able to make all the products that they were supposed to make," said Jess Reese, a replacement operator at the plant and organizer for IUECWA Local 83761. It was hard to cover certain job tasks on the assembly line, and so that created chaos. And it was just hard to get things done. Well, yeah. Reese also expressed concern about the threat of more workers being forced out by the Trump administration. Quote, "Hundreds of workers kind of disappearing at the drop of a hat is no joke, as we've seen with the last wave of mass terminations." There's more. At a Kraft Heinz plant in Holland, Michigan, workers have been basically mandated to work overtime as a result of immigrants being kicked out of their jobs. Quote, "We had people there for 20 years and all of a sudden they get notification that their immigration authorization is revoked," said Thomas Torres, a maintenance mechanic of 13 years and the president of RWD SU Local 705. They can't be there anymore. And that just puts a strain on everybody. The lack of people on the lines, there are employees running 2 machines. It should be 1 person per machine. Manager and supervisors are all stressed out, canceling vacations for people because they don't have enough people to run the machines. Torres says that personally he has been working 12 to 14-hour days, part of a first shift, all of a second shift, and part of the third shift. Jeez, I'm tired, he says. And you catch people falling asleep on the line, and that's a big safety issue. All of this that has happened has affected everybody at the plant. It's crazy because I hear people complain every single day. Look, man, I have worked on the line. Okay, so I've worked in these jobs. I used to do manufacturing before I did this. And if people don't show up, it's a disaster. Okay, things do not work right. Okay, because again, you have a line, an assembly line, which relies on every people at the whatever station to do their job first before it gets to you. If those people don't show up, who does that job? You not only do their job, but you're also doing your own job. Okay. And that's not good. That's not good at all. Okay. And look, this is not just one person that doesn't show up because they're sick, right? You get 10 people, you get 20 people that don't show up. I mean, that just completely destroys your ability to get your job done. It destroys production. That's the problem. And look, you can't just hire people off the street to replace them. It's not that easy. You got to train them, okay? And so you get people that might not know their machines, or they might not be trained to do those jobs. I mean, you have to train them, right? That takes time. But if the supervisor is too busy running the machines for people who no longer are there, they're not going to have time to train those other people. That's a problem. And again, you cannot hire enough people on short notice to replace them all. You got to train them, you got to drug test them, you got to do all these things. And that takes time that they do not have. This is why economists have been saying, Trump, if you do this, this is going to be an absolute disaster. This is going to be chaos. This is going to wreck the economy. And that's exactly what's happening. We are in the beginning stages of finding out. Look, the Economic Policy Institute had estimated this month that 4 million deportations, which is what they're going for, right? Would result in the loss of 3.3 million jobs held by immigrants in the U.S. But it won't just affect them, obviously. 2.6 million U.S.-born employees will also lose their jobs. And it will hit industries including construction and childcare, which also has downstream effects. The American Enterprise Institute, which is a conservative think tank, they found that the Trump immigration policies will likely lead to a negative net migration into the U.S. for the first time in decades. Which again, that's the point, right? They want to stop immigrants from coming in, but it will also result in a decrease in U.S. GDP of between 0.3 and 0.4%, or about $70.5 billion to $94 billion in economic output every year. That's not good at all. Now there's more. Maria Jose Padmore, a human services assistant for Fairfax County in Virginia, said, quote, of the immigrants, one day they're there, and the next day I'm looking for my coworker, and he's gone because their temporary protected status expired. Forget about the fact that I now have to share my coworker's job. Let's think about my coworker's family. How are they going to put food on their table? Once again, Trump doesn't care. Okay. The racists don't care. Gwen Mills, president of Unite Here, the largest hospitality union in the U.S., said that Trump's changes were, quote, wreaking havoc across the families of our coworkers and in our community. Oftentimes within the labor movement, we find ourselves divided by industries, said Jimmy Williams, president of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, which represents construction workers. But when it comes to immigration, it's got to be the one single thing that puts a thread between a hotel worker, a construction worker, a service worker, a public employee, a teacher. This is something that affects every single working person in this country. It's had a real impact on immigrant workers, obviously, but it's also had a real impact on non-immigrant workers, said Reese at the GE Appliances plant. It's really important that we stick together because we all want the same things. We want safe workplaces. We want good wages. We all want to go home to our family in one piece. We all want to live in a safe place. We all want to be free. These are things that we all share. And we're only going to get that stuff, if we stick together. So look, that is a good message of solidarity. Unfortunately, we don't have that. We don't have worker solidarity in this country. What we have is rugged individualism, because if you have worker solidarity, well, the right wing calls that socialism, and we can't have that. I've long advocated for worker solidarity. against right-wing attacks. Unfortunately, Trump did really well with union workers. Trump did really well with blue-collar workers. That is despite his massive anti-union record. And now those workers, well, I mean, they're getting screwed over, not only by Trump's hatred of unions, because again, he is cracking down on them. He is cracking down on labor. He is not helping blue-collar workers at all, the people that he claimed that he was going to represent. Obviously, I knew that was all BS. I told you it was all BS. But people didn't believe me. Trump's not a friend to working people. Okay? He will always be management. And the kind of management that's more likely to drive the company out of business and then loot the corpse. I was right about him. Of course. And I knew that. Because I don't go out here and I don't speak bullshit. Okay? I am, again, somebody who worked these jobs. I worked these jobs. I've dealt with management. I've been a union member. And look, believing that any Republican is going to be on the side of labor is, I would say, stupid. It's stupid. No, of course the Republicans are not on the side of labor. They're always on the side of the corporate bosses. Always. 100%. Unfortunately, like I said, there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of working people who believed the bullshit, who didn't have solidarity with their, fellow workers, and now are paying the price. I mean, not only is Trump being the kind of manager of the country, okay, that would drive it out of business and loot the corpse. Now he is doing that exact same thing to our country overall, which I believe was always his plan: drive us to bankruptcy, drive us out of business, drive us into ruin, all while looting the corpse of this country. And this is unfortunately what these workers who voted for Trump allowed to happen. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.